Karen's belt struck Mira, my mute 5-year-old, as she clutched her bunny, trembling. "Your kid's signs are trash," the HOA bully screamed. My fist shook, but I'm a prosecutor. Her cruelty woke a fire in me. Myra's silent sobs will be avenged. Karen's reign ends now, she'll beg for mercy. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. The crack of a belt slicing through the air shattered the evening calm. I froze at my kitchen window, my coffee mug slipping from my hand and crashing to the floor. Outside, in our small front yard, my 5-year-old daughter, Mira, cowered, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her mute voice couldn't cry out, but her wide, terrified eyes screamed for help. Karen, the HOA president, towered over her, face twisted with rage. The leather belt in her hand gleamed under the streetlight as she swung it down on Myra's tiny arm. A faint whimper escaped my daughter's lips, the only sound she could make. "Stop that hand-flapping nonsense," Karen barked, her voice venomous. "You're ruining this neighborhood." I bolted outside, my heart pounding like a drum. "Karen, get away from her," I shouted, sprinting across the lawn. Mira ran to me, her small body trembling as she buried her face in my shirt. Her bunny fell to the grass, forgotten. Karen turned, her eyes cold as ice. "This kid's a problem," she sneered. "Her weird signs scare my dog and her toys clutter the yard. Someone's gotta teach her manners." "She's 5. I yelled, holding Mira tighter. "You're hitting a child." Karen smirked, twirling the belt. "I'm keeping this place perfect. You should be grateful." My blood boiled, but I didn't lunge at her. I'm a federal prosecutor. I've spent years locking up criminals, people like Karen. Reacting with fists would only give her power. Instead, I scooped up Myra's bunny and carried her inside. Her silent tears soaked my chest, each one a dagger to my heart. That night, as I tucked her into bed, her small hands signed, "Why does she hate me?" I swallowed hard, signing back, "She doesn't know how special you are. I'll make this right, Mira. I promise." Sleep didn't come. Karen's cruelty replayed in my mind like a nightmare. We'd moved to this quiet neighborhood 2 years ago, after my wife died in a car accident. Mira, born mute, was my world, bright, curious, and kind despite her silence. She spoke through sign language, her hands dancing like butterflies. Everyone loved her except Karen. As HOA president, Karen ruled like a tyrant, fining people for minor things like untrimmed bushes or wrong paint colors. But targeting Mira? That was personal, and I'd make sure she paid. Inside, I was breaking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Myra's terrified face, her hands frozen mid-sign. I'd failed to protect her. As a prosecutor, I'd put away murderers and thieves, but I couldn't stop a neighbor from hurting my daughter. The guilt was heavy, but it fueled me. Karen didn't know who I was. She saw me as a quiet single dad, easy to push around. She was wrong. The next morning I started my plan. I began by talking to neighbors, knocking on doors while Mira stayed with my sister, Emily. Most were scared to speak. Karen's reign had silenced them. But some opened up, their voices low, their eyes nervous. Mrs. Patel, an elderly woman with kind eyes, whispered, "She fined me $300 for my roses being too bright. I saw her hit Mira last week, but I was too afraid to say anything. She threatened to report my son's car as abandoned." Mr. Thompson, a retired teacher, shook his head. "She yelled at my grandson for skateboarding. Said it lowered property values. She's been hitting your daughter for weeks." I should have spoken up. Their stories fueled my anger, but I stayed calm. Emotion wouldn't win this. Evidence would. I checked local laws. Hitting a child, even with a belt, was assault. Karen wasn't just a bully, she was a criminal. I installed 2 security cameras. One in a birdhouse, another by the porch. They were motion activated, recording everything. I hated spying, but Myra's safety came first. 4 days I watched Karen's routine. Every evening she patrolled the neighborhood, belt in hand, looking for violations. On Friday it happened again. Mira was playing with chalk on our driveway, drawing flowers. Karen stormed over, yelling about vandalism. The cameras caught it all. Karen raising the belt, Mira flinching, the leather striking her shoulder. My fists clenched, but I had evidence now. I took Mira to a pediatrician the next day. The doctor examined her, noting purple bruises on her arms, back, and shoulders. "These are from repeated strikes," she said, her voice tight with anger. The report was detailed, undeniable. I filed a police report, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Karen had bragged about her brother, a local cop. I needed to outsmart her. At work, I dug deeper. Using public records, I found Karen's past. 12 years ago, she'd been charged with assault in another state but escaped on a technicality. She'd moved here, tweaked her name, and started over. I also uncovered HOA complaints she'd buried, dozens of them, from unfair fines to threats. She wasn't untouchable, she was careless. I called an emergency neighborhood meeting, something Karen couldn't block without looking suspicious. The community center was packed, 60 neighbors crammed into a small room. Karen sat in the front, arms crossed, smirking like she was untouchable. Mira stayed home with Emily. I didn't want her near this fight. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside. "This is about Karen Mitchell, our HOA president, and her abuse of power." Karen's smirk vanished. "What's this nonsense?" she snapped, standing. "It's about you beating my daughter," I said. Gasps filled the room. I connected my laptop to a projector and played the footage. The screen showed Karen striking Mira, her belt swinging as my daughter cowered. Neighbors gasped. Mrs. Patel covered her face, tears streaming. Mr. Thompson clenched his fists. "This is Mira," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "She's 5. She's mute. She's never hurt anyone. And you, Karen, have been abusing her for weeks." Karen's face turned red. "That's fake. You edited it." I held up the doctor's report. "This says otherwise. So do these." I passed out copies of the buried HOA complaints. Neighbors whispered, their shock turning to fury. "You fine me $500 for my fence being too tall, by an inch," a young mother shouted. "You threatened to sue me over my Christmas lights," another neighbor yelled. Karen's eyes darted around, searching for allies. She found none. I stepped closer. "I'm a federal prosecutor, Karen. I know the law. You've committed assault, child abuse, and violated HOA bylaws. You're finished." She laughed, but it was shaky. "You can't touch me. My brother's a cop." "Not anymore," I said. I checked. Her brother was suspended for corruption. Her shield was gone. I turned to the crowd. "The HOA bylaws allow us to remove her with a 2/3 vote. Who's with me?" Hands shot up. Mrs. Patel stood, her voice trembling. "For Mira." "For Mira," Mr. Thompson echoed. The vote was unanimous. Karen screamed, throwing her clipboard, but 3 neighbors escorted her out. The room cheered, but I wasn't done. I wanted justice not just for Mira but for everyone Karen had bullied. Over the next week I built a case. I sent the footage, doctor's report, and neighbor testimonies to the state HOA oversight board. I also forwarded the assault evidence to my colleagues at the federal level. Child abuse was a serious charge, and Karen's history made it worse. I dug deeper, finding bank records showing she'd pocketed thousands in HOA fines for personal use. Embezzlement, another crime. Myra's pain lingered. She stopped playing outside, too scared to leave the house. At night, she'd wake up signing frantically, "Is she coming back?" Her nightmares broke me. I'd hold her, promising she was safe, but her fear was a weight I couldn't lift alone. I took her to a child therapist, Ms. Carter, who specialized in trauma. Ms. Carter taught Mira coping techniques like drawing her feelings. Slowly, Myra's sketches shifted from dark scribbles to colorful flowers, but her spark was still dim. I swore I'd bring it back. The neighborhood rallied in ways I hadn't expected. Mrs. Patel baked cookies for Mira, leaving them on our porch with a note, "You're stronger than you know." Mr. Thompson organized a chalk drawing party for the kids, turning our street into a rainbow of colors. Mira joined, hesitant at first, then smiled, signing pretty as she drew a butterfly. Other neighbors stepped up too. A young couple, the Garcias, brought Mira a new sketchbook. "We saw what happened," Mrs. Garcia said. "We're with you." But the guilt gnawed at me. I'd been so focused on my cases at work, drug lords, fraudsters, that I'd missed the monster next door. Myra's bruises were my failure. Late at night, I'd sit in my office, staring at her drawings, promising myself I'd never let her down again. I poured that guilt into the case, working late to ensure every detail was perfect. Karen wouldn't slip through this time. Karen's arrest came 10 days later. Police cars rolled into her driveway, lights flashing. Neighbors watched from their porches as she was cuffed, screaming about her rights. The charges were heavy: assault, battery, child endangerment, and embezzlement. Her HOA schemes unraveled, revealing she'd extorted over $20,000 from residents. The news spread, and more neighbors came forward with stories: fines for noisy wind chimes, threats over kids' toys. Karen's empire of fear was collapsing. The trial was swift but emotional. I testified, showing the footage and doctor's report. Mira didn't have to appear. Her silence spoke through the evidence. Neighbors testified too, their voices strong. Mrs. Patel recounted Karen's threats against her family. Mr. Thompson described how she'd bullied his grandson. The prosecutor, a colleague of mine, laid out the embezzlement evidence. Bank statements showing Karen's lavish vacations funded by HOA money. The judge, a stern woman with no patience for bullies, sentenced Karen to 5 years in prison and ordered her to pay restitution, including Myra's therapy costs. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, she glared at me, her eyes full of hate. I stared back, unflinching. She'd hurt my daughter and now she'd pay. Myra's healing took time. Ms. Carter worked with her weekly, using art and sign language to rebuild her confidence. One day Myra drew a picture of our house, with her and me holding hands under a bright sun. Safe, she signed, her eyes bright. It was the first time I cried since the ordeal began. I framed the drawing, hanging it in our living room as a reminder of her strength. The neighborhood transformed. We elected Mrs. Patel as HOA president. She was kind, fair, and loved by all. Fines stopped and rules relaxed. Kids played freely, their laughter echoing through the streets. Mr. Thompson started a weekly story time at the community center, where Myra sat in the front, signing along to the tales. The Garcias hosted barbecues, inviting everyone. Our street felt alive again like a family. One evening, 2 months later, we held a neighborhood picnic. Tables lined the street, covered with food, flowers, and Myra's drawings displayed proudly. She ran around with other kids, signing and laughing silently. Mrs. Patel hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You saved us all," she said. "No," I said, watching Myra draw a heart in the air. She did. That night, on our porch, Myra signed, "Is she really gone?" "Yes," I signed, pulling her close. "You're safe forever." She hugged me, her bunny tucked under her arm. The sky glowed orange, peaceful. Myra signed, "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too," I signed, my heart full. Justice wasn't just a word, it was real. Myra was free, Karen was gone, and our neighborhood was home again. But the real victory was Myra's smile, bright and fearless, lighting up the world in her silent way.